At 4 p.m. This meeting will come to order. We have all our trustees with the exception of Trustee Robinson. We have our treasurer, I almost forgot you, sorry. And we have our director here, business manager, counsel. I believe, is he just on the phone or is he here on the screen somewhere?
He's there. The B. He's the B.
B. Okay, very good. And we have our communications and marketing manager. We have a quorum. And so we can open up, I guess, with agenda item number 3, the Fatbeam contract discussion. Before we start, I'd like to say thank you for the extra information that was emailed to them. Just explain a little more what the E-rate is. And so I don't know who wants to drive this particular one.
Yeah, so I just sent that stuff ahead, and we do happen to have the two most knowledgeable people here. We have Claire and we have Mark. So everything I failed to answer last time, I'm sure it could be answered this time, and hopefully we can execute the contract.
So this is just a question and answer for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I only have one question, if you don't mind, and it's not real technical. I didn't understand the 5-year sign off. I thought it was with 1-year automatic renewals. That just, I didn't understand. Is that are we locked into 5 years in the signature process here, or are we locked into 5 years if we don't say we want out? Are we getting a bargain or a discount because we're signing up for 5 years versus 1 or 2? So that's the only question I have, at least so far, unless something new comes out.
I would think Claire would probably be the best one to speak to that if she. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Claire.
Sorry, I was doing that while I was working before we started. And by the way, let me introduce myself. My name is Claire Christnacht, and I have been the E-rate consultant for your library since, I don't know, maybe 2018. And I've been doing E-rate since it started in around 2000 for various libraries. I do specialize in libraries, but this program is available to both schools and libraries. And I work with libraries mostly in the Northwest area, Northwest of the US. I work with about 10 libraries in Washington State area, and then I have a consortium of 20 small rural libraries that we manage. It's kind of sponsored by the Washington State Library, and then I manage their E-rate contracts. So I've got a lot of experience with the program, and I'm happy to, if you're interested in getting more of a background on it, I do have some information that I could share with you. But to answer your specific question here, my understanding, and I learned this years ago from the last time we signed a contract, that there is an interpretation by your legal team that the Idaho code requires you to sign only 1-year contracts. I'm aware that other schools who participate in the, and schools are the primary applicants in this program, participants in the program, but I think that there are other Idaho schools that do not structure their contracts this way, so they must have a legal team that has a different definition. And I can't explain the difference. It's a bit of a leap of faith for the your service provider. I will say that they get their pricing over a certain year period. And so they're saying this is like I think it said a 6-year contract roughly. So they're kind of making a leap of faith with you that the contract would continue over that period of time, and that is how they got the rates that they received here.
I also remember it's attached to the same question was I heard the council telling the board last time that if it's $100,000 or less, we don't have to have it. What was that? RFP does not require $100,000 or less. I don't know what, I didn't look back at this. What is the cost on the Fatbeam? But I think it's, I don't know if it's between the director or business or the council. I just don't understand the 5-year thing. Are we automatically locked into 5 years? Are they each time that we redo it each year, or does it go automatic if we don't say otherwise? Do we get a discount or a bargain? That's my only overall question for me. It's not technical as far as the internet lines.
Obviously invite council to speak to the specific Idaho laws that might restrict us from going with more than a 1-year contract. I'm not familiar with that.
Do we have counsel?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we're trying to understand the 1-year versus 5-year contract. I think it was 5. I don't know.
So we're talking about structuring the contract how? Like a 5-year block, or what's the question?
I'm asking is, are we signing one for a 1-year and then we automatically have the ability to continue on for year 2, 3, 4, and 5? Are we required to sign on for 5 years? Is there an advantage to 5 years? And also, I could think I didn't look back at the cost of this thing. If it's a 1 year, then if it's under $100,000, I understand we don't need an RFP, I'm sorry. So I need to understand just the term regarding the length of this contract and how that works.
I don't think there is an explicit prohibition in the procurement rules that apply to public libraries, which are governed under an entirely different chapter than schools. But the procurement rules still apply generally equally to the same. So I didn't draft that contract, nor did I ever provide a legal opinion that we were limited to 1 year. It's good practice because the board adopts a budget and they may not appropriate a budget, and you can't spend money you don't appropriate. So you could be binding a future board, and the case law is not out on that yet in Idaho about how much a prior board can bind a future board. Most of the common law on that subject comes from a long time ago from the East Coast, from the early states. The contract I received had like a 5-year successive renewal period, and I didn't object to it. I simply noted for the board that you need to add up the total cost of the whole project and then apply the appropriate procurement section to that. So you can't procure based upon a 1-year contract if you have 6 total years or 11 total years. You need to account for the total length of the contract to the maximum extent. Because if you renew, you don't do another RFP. So you kind of have to ratchet down to the most stringent set of conditions. So does that make more sense that way?
No, I'm still trying to understand, are we signing on for 12, it says service term, 12 months with 5 12-month automatic renewals. So does this mean, are we signing right now for a 1-year contract with the ability to negotiate a second contract a year from now? I just don't understand the term.
My understanding is that it automatically renews. It's not that you would sign it and renegotiate it next year and then renegotiate it the following year or the following year. These are automatic renewals. So they just happen unless you come back and say, we want out, I guess. But that would be highly unusual.
Is that in line with council? I'm good with that idea. We still have council? I guess trustee Clausen, while we're waiting for council.
Well, while we're waiting.
Mine cut out, and so I turned the video off to see if it'd catch up.
Okay. I'm just asking, do you align with that interpretation that we have a 1-year contract and it will automatically renew 1 year at a time unless the CLN intervenes at one point and does not want to renew? Is that pretty much how it works? And it'll continue to renew year after year for 5 years? Yeah, I want if you want, why is it?
So my question for clarification is, how would we stop an automatic renewal? What do we have to do? I don't see anything delineated. While you're answering council, maybe you can explain that.
There is something under term renewals in here on page 2.
That's after 7 months. But
Okay. Well, we get that one answered. I don't have any other questions, just so you know, so I'm not trying to slow us down, but I just need to understand, and trustee does have a question or questions, so. But I just want to understand, what are we signing for? What is the term? What is the duration? Is it a 1 year at a time unless we say we want to terminate or sever our contract with them? Or not renew automatically? That's all I'm looking to understand.
Claire? While council looks at that, do you have any insight or experience with in your in the past where a client didn't renew, didn't take the auto renew, and what did that look like?
Honestly, Idaho is a unique situation. And so when this was set up years ago, with Fatbeam, whatever, 6 years ago, that was at the, what your council had told you at the time, that it needed to be structured that way to conform to Idaho code. So I don't have any real experience on that. What I do know that it's very common for E-rate contracts that they're usually 5-year terms with extensions, and an extension could either require you to sign an amendment saying, yes, we're going to exercise this extension, a 1-year extension, or it would be an automatic extension, and then it just happens with no paperwork happening. So that was my assumption, would be that each year, because it's an automatic renewal, you don't sign any paperwork, it just keeps going. If a contract expires and you don't give that notification, then you do not have the option to renew it. But again, this is an automatic extension, and so I would expect that the contract would say that you would have to notify them to stop it, to terminate it. Yeah.
We can get confirmation from council. That's all I want to know.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for this question, and I just need you to restate specifically what you're asking me. Is it, can the public library district execute a contract that's longer than 12 months? Or is it, can the public library district have 12-month automatic renewals subject to appropriations? I mean, this is also a federal E-rate program, and so those federal regulations work together with our procurement statutes, and there's requirements that it's complicated, some of them may supersede some of our state law, but we still have our own constitutional funding limitations that we have to deal with. And so, you know, the service order is what sets forth the 12-month period that will then be succeeded by 5 automatic 12-month periods. But the updated contract I sent you makes it subject to appropriation. And so although the board is signing this and we're saying, hey, we're going to be with Fatbeam for 5 years, we're doing the E-rate program, a future board could come in and not appropriate money, because that question to me is unanswered. So the original question was, what is in the term of the contract? The master service agreements points to the service order. The service order has a 12-month with 5 succeeding 12 months. Those are automatic with no action the board has to take. Then the board can do another 5 successive 12-month periods. If it elects, I think it's 30 days, they send Fatbeam a letter, and then you get another 5 years.
Hearing that, my only question is, can the board, not that we need to or want to, but can the board decide after 1 year, we don't want to renew it, and that's that? Or after a year or 2, that's all, we want to terminate at that point? Is that what this thing is we're signing?
You can do that, but there's consequences to that action. One would be,
what are we signing? I'm not asking to go into a legal battle with somebody. I just want to understand. We're signing for 5 months with for 12 months with 5 12-month renewals. So are we automatically going to get renewals each year without doing anything at all? And if we decided, or a future board decided, they want to terminate this contract at one of these renewal periods, we'll call it intervals, is that a problem? Was that just?
Not according to updated draft I provided to the board, but the original master services agreement and the service order would prohibit the community library network from purchasing any other internet service from 12 months from the date of cancellation of the contract with Fatbeam.
So essentially, whatever you changed, we're locking ourselves into 1 year plus 5-year renewals. Is that what we're saying?
That's correct, but not the second 5-year term. That's elected by you. So you get the first 6 years, and then you have to notify Fatbeam if you want an additional 5, totaling 11.
Okay, well, I don't know if we're comfortable signing for 5 straight or 6 years, basically, yeah.
6 years.
Is that what everyone's comfortable with? If that's what's written up, we're locking ourselves in for 6 years. I'm not saying it's bad. Just want to make sure we understand that we're clear what we're asking, what we're signing for. Trustee Plus.
So I am a little bothered going through all of this, that we've kind of put a RFQ or RFP out for a Cadillac program is what I consider it. And I know that's what we had in the past, and it's kind of just renewing it, but I'm a little bothered that we're going for what I call a Cadillac program when it probably isn't necessary. I can explain what I mean for that, but I don't know whether it's mandated by federal regulations because E-rate's in it. So I guess I can explain what I mean by Cadillac program, and then maybe you could clarify. But the way I see this is we asked for quotes for up to 50 gigabits per second, which is a expensive Cisco switch to even be able to do that. It wasn't even available a few years ago. And it looks like we're doing sometimes over 1 gigabit per second at Post Falls Library, but part of why that seems to be is we're asking for a closed system. So one input into Post Falls that gets routed internally to all 7 libraries. So we have where a lot of the 7 libraries could just have a public connection for YouTube or a lot of things off the public network that people are using. I don't know why we are having every bit come through Post Falls, and that's part of why we're up, several gigabits maybe, but these other libraries are probably only doing, not even 500 megabits per second. But YouTube is 3 to 5 megabits per second. If you got 10 computers doing it, they're maybe doing 50 megabits per second. So Pinehurst and Spirit Lake and places, I don't see why we're asking why this RFQ was written to get up to 50 gigabits per second at every library. There's hardly any service providers that can do that. You're forcing it to be fiber, and you're forcing it to be almost dedicated fiber lines between the libraries, when I feel a lot of it could just be public internet coming into the library, and then anything going between the libraries could be VPN. I don't know how much money we would save doing that, but it's structured 50 gig requesting for quotes up to 50 gigabits per second. It's completely limiting it to only fiber providers and only fiber providers that are willing to go lease lines between Post Falls and Spirit Lake and so forth, when those providers maybe there's only one provider that has a fiber line like that, so they have to go lease it.
Do you mind if I step in for just a moment here? I want you to know that I hear your concern. You're right, 50 gig is really high. And Martin and I were discussing this this morning. The E-rate forms are set up where you need to give a range, a low and a high for what you could use over the term of a contract. So we're trying to predict what the library may need over the next 5 to 10 years. And when you do that, you need to ask for at least a couple levels above. It's very hard to predict where technology will go into the future. And I've been doing this for 25 years. And back in the day, we thought 100 megabit was just outrageous. And we'd laugh about it. We'd put it in the forms. And then we would need 200 to 500. And so there has been a vast growth in the technology requirements. And the E-rate program, one of their primary goals is to get all schools and libraries up to this 1 gigabit connection, a real stable and reliable connection of at least a gig everywhere. Many are in the 2 to 5 for individual locations, and it is not at all uncommon for them to have a central connection of over 10. So now those are all, these are just sort of standards I'm talking about in the industry. My understanding is that your usage data is suggesting that you need at least a gig at certain times of the period when your patrons are there. So we want to make sure that you are covering your patron data. However, this form is telling you that you've got this drop-down menu of these are your options for what you could choose from. So the RFP is written just to be consistent with that form saying, okay, it may go up to 50. And 50 is always, you choose 1 or 2 levels. This is just standard practice for how to fill out an E-rate application. Choose a couple of levels above what you think you may need in the next 10 years. That's where the 50 came from. So I don't want you to be concerned about that as if anybody is thinking that you guys need 50 megabit. Absolutely not. So that is why we went back into the RFP and wrote some additional information. And I think that the staff was very aware that there were some concerns that maybe there was that you had more capacity than your library needed. And so we wrote the RFP to say, hey, this is what we have. And in fact, we might even consider decreasing this to the 500 megabit level. And when we did that and we received bids on that, and those bids, actually, the amounts were the same. They were identical for 500 megabit versus a gig. And so that's an interesting thing that just happens in the market now. You don't see a whole lot of price differentials between the 1 and 5. And then at 10, as I think you're aware, you need additional equipment. And so then their prices do go higher because it's going to require them to switch out equipment, et cetera. So we're certainly not looking for those higher amounts that you see listed. We're just trying to comply with the E-rate requirements and make sure that we're looking to the future so that you are not losing any funding in the future. Anyone who sees these RFPs and applications, in order to apply, in order for you to receive the funding, your all vendors must have a SPIN number is what it's called. It's a service provider and identification number. And that means that they're aware of the E-rate rules, they're willing to comply with them, and they certify annually that they will. And it also means that they will agree to charging the applicants that discounted rate. In your case, it's a 70% discount off of the services. So whatever is out there, you're getting, whatever you're being charged, the federal government will put in 70% to pay that off. Pay that portion of it for you. And the goal is to reduce costs to bring reliable services out to areas, particularly like yours, that is not as populated as other areas in the country. So that's just one of the goals of the E-rate program, is to help give people a hand up, and you would still be paying your portion. The interesting part about Idaho, however, is that if you participate in the E-rate program, your state has, over the past many years, dedicated surplus funds that they have to paying the non-discounted portion. So you are also getting reimbursed for whatever else you would have paid, and then the state reimburses you for the remaining amount. So what I'm finding is that you are right in line with every other library that I'm working with. We did try to see what it would be if it made sense to come down in price, but it wasn't cost effective because it was the same price essentially for you to reduce your service as it was to keep it where it is. And interestingly, by doing this RFP process and receiving other bids, we found that all of the vendors were pretty much in the same price range. So that was really encouraging. And I think the price has reduced significantly from over $100,000 a year to about $50,000 a year for you. And I think what that is telling you is that the federal funds that were used to infuse and develop your program was used for this construction costs. And now that the construction costs are paid for, the providers can provide the service to you at a reduced rate, which, you know, just continuing the existing service. So I was really pleased with the result of this. And I'm sorry that the form and the E-rate rules were causing some confusion and concerns for you, because that was certainly nobody's intention. And I think I was real impressed, honestly, with the way your staff approached it. It's pretty unusual for anyone to ever reduce their capacity, and yet we did write that into the RFP to make sure that we were addressing your concerns. Another thing I wanted to mention is that you're mentioning that you want to make sure that other vendors could apply. I think was what you were saying, that it might be putting people off because you're looking at these large numbers. Anyone who has a SPIN code and participates in the E-rate program knows how this works. The form is just something that's, they sort of use it as a search tool, and then they pull up the RFP and they base it entirely on they base their bids entirely on the RFP. And that form is really just a compliance requirement that we're trying to figure out. And it's a tool to get your RFP posted for folks to see, particularly these people who are part of the E-rate program. But I do think that if you're looking for smaller vendors to come on board with this program, they would still need to have this E-rate SPIN code. And I was thinking about your concerns and thinking, well, what are some of the factors that could cause that? And that might be one of them. That they're not well versed in the program, or there may not be enough business in that program for them to justify them to do the administrative work, and also take that. It's extra work. It's absolutely extra work for the service providers and the applicants, of course. And it creates some uncertainty in the way they get paid, because where they would send you a bill normally for the full amount of the service, in your case, they're only charging you 30% of what it actually costs. And then they have to go back and charge the government for 70%. And there's all sorts of certifications and things that go along with that. And a lot of small vendors just don't want to get into that business, which I can see it they can't justify it with additional business. Does that help? Or do you have more specific questions on that? We really did go into this with the intent of addressing these concerns.
Yeah, Mike, that does help. What I don't understand is E-rate dictating this Cadillac service where everything comes into Post Falls and then goes through dedicated fiber lines to these 7 or
they're not dictating that. Yeah, they're not dictating that. That's a real common structure. I think all of my libraries either have that, or they would have a direct fiber connection to each branch. And that tends to be more expensive. So you have what in my experience, and I'm not a tech person, I do E-rate, but I've seen a lot of these processes. In my experience, that could be more expensive.
I would say this is more expensive because it's requiring the 1 gig lines. Where if they weren't all the data wasn't coming into Post Falls, it might not. That the other is point system. Is that, I was going to ask, is that dictated by E-rate regulations?
No, not at all.
It's surprising that only 40% was given by price. And, you know, regional vendor, the one that is winning is not in our district, but yet they were given full credit for being in our district. They're in Coeur d'Alene. That's not part of our district. But the other
How many
But the
regional
other-
vendors are in your library district?
Well, I don't know exactly how many, but I'm saying Fatbeam that is in this contract was given full credit for being, and it actually said that I saw in our district. Well, they're not. They're in Coeur d'Alene, which isn't part of our district. And
In local.
well, it says regional, but the way I saw it when I was shown the way the contract was, they were awarded full credit for being, and then I think it said for in the district, but they aren't. And the other Zipley has got the main headquarters also over by Coeur d'Alene, but it's got a much bigger operation in this area. Anyway, because I don't know whether it was because it's company corporate address is somewhere in the Northwest, but I guarantee you they got a lot more employees in our library district than the other one, the Fatbeam.
Yeah, I
But
think
I was-
one
I
of
was
the
just-
that criteria is intended to address a specific concern. With the E-rate program, you're posting this form on a national website. And it is not uncommon at all for us to get bids from somebody who's from the other side of the country. And they're going to come in here and they give you a price and they say they're going to give you internet service for something. And they're not, we would call Zipley and Fatbeam local. I've never heard of one being as close to inside a library district. I don't know that that's a criteria that I've ever had any library request. And I'm not even sure that it's possible. But what we're trying to address is we want someone with some local experience so that they know what your terrain is. And that if you've got a problem, you can call up and say, hey, I'm right here, get over here and fix it. And if you have these, we get these national bids and it's can be, you need to have a criteria that can downgrade them because you don't even know that they don't even know what's going on here. They just assume that they can come in and subcontract some lines and get out to your library. So that's what that one particular criteria was for. I would think that.
What I'm saying is it was written, and I think they got more points. I don't remember for certain, but they got written because they said they were in the library district. Well, they aren't. And the other one was somewhere in the Northwest, which is maybe their corporate headquarters, but they have a huge facility over here at Prairie and 95, which I think is in our district. But anyway, I also, quality of proposal, E-rate experience, I would have liked to have seen more points towards price, but anyway.
Well, fortunately, the price was almost identical for all of them. So I think that.
There's really only one set of fiber lines that does this, and I think Zipley owns them and they're leasing them out. So it's, that's why the prices are the same.
Well, I think
Yeah.
Zipley may own some, and I think Fatbeam owns some.
So my questions have been answered. It's probably not perfectly ideal, but the director has indicated that this needs to be signed. So I move that we accept the Fatbeam contract.
It has been moved that the board accepts or approves a Fatbeam project, contract. Still leaves us open for conversation and discussion. I'll throw another question, it's related to this now. Listening to you, Claire, if I understood you correctly, whether our RFP asks for 500 megabytes, if that's correct, up to 1 gigabyte, that makes no difference almost no difference in terms of pricing. So us asking theoretically, I don't know the specifications here, us asking for a higher speed rate or a rate of stuff passing through really didn't affect the price? Is that really not a big piece of this puzzle?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. So if I can repeat what I heard, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so you're asking me if the lowering the speed did not affect the price?
That's what it sounded like from trustee Platt.
That
It
is,
sounded
that is
like-
correct. Yeah,
Okay,
that is correct.
so then
And that's not
we
uncommon.
didn't
Be-
use any
it's-
necessarily good, what we call it, bids, if you want to call it that, from the RFPs. We didn't lose any viable, contending contractors out there because they couldn't meet that requirement. And if they,
No,
okay, well, then I'm okay with that personally. Yeah, trustee Platt.
Well, I think we don't know. I mean, if somebody looked at it and they saw the 50 gigabits, they could have said, it's not worth it, I'm not gonna try it. So just because we got two to give full bids on it, doesn't mean there weren't others. I just wish 50 gigabits wasn't in there. Maybe you could say 10 or maybe you could say 5, but we don't need that. And the only reason we even need the 1 or 2 gigabits is because everything is coming through Post Falls. And it didn't have to be structured that way, but anyway.
Okay, I'll go one last time on the same question I had before, yes? Oh, sorry, please go ahead.
Can I ask why we chose them over the other bid?
well, the prices were almost identical, and there were evaluation criteria that we were looking at. But one of the big factors that we have to consider is if you transition to a new vendor. And I can tell you what people experience with that. So number one, if you're going to transition to a new vendor, you need no less than 6 months to do that, which is one of the reasons why we issued that RFP so early on, is so that you could sign a contract and get someone started on services. We weren't precluding any new bidders from trying to get this job by issuing it so late that they'd be like, oh no, there's no way we can risk losing service. So we wanted to make sure that this was resolved 6 months in advance. As it turned out, Fatbeam came down in their price. I don't know what it was, 60–70%. I mean, it was a huge drop in their pricing because the construction costs from before were amortized over the last contract period. All of the prices were pretty much the same. Now, if you do a transition to a new service provider, you basically need to pay for 2 service providers during that transition period. And you've got to give a 30-day notice that you're canceling the service. And so you'll be paying for 2 providers for at least 1 month period of time. The reality is, actually, I was telling Martin this morning, the reality is that Community Library Network is the only library that transitioned before and made everything on time. But I've never experienced that since. These providers get stuck. There's construction delays, there's zoning delays. I had one where there was a delay with a property management company, hadn't renewed a contract with a service provider for access to a building. And all they needed to do was a 10-minute flip switch. And that meant that it took them 9 months to get that line in. Well, if you don't make it by July 1st, then you have to pay a month-to-month rate with your old vendor. And for the E-rate program, they don't increase your funding. What you ask for at the beginnings with this new contracted rate does not cover month-to-month rates. And month-to-month rates are usually at least 2 to 3 times what you pay in a contracted rate. So what I'm explaining here is there are risks involved with changing to a new vendor, and there are costs associated with those risks. And so you need to plan on at least, I would say, $10,000 to $20,000 for your library minimum to transition to a new vendor. And that would not be covered by any E-rate funding, and it would not be covered by any of your state funding. So that was one of the factors that we were considering. The other thing is, my understanding, and Mark certainly should step in on this one, is that your service has been very reliable and that you have a very good relationship with your existing vendor. So you certainly want to give weight to that. I've had good experience with Ziply with another library client. I think they're good too, but you've got something great going on right now, and there will definitely be some costs that would need to be absorbed by the library that would not have been offset by that very, very slight reduction in their price points, monthly price points.
Okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go back one more time to a question. Where is the advantage or disadvantage to signing up for a 1-year contract was 5 automatic 12-month renewals. I'm sorry. Yeah, 5 of those. Is that good, bad? Was there a giant discount by signing on for more? Again, I'm not going after signing less. I would like to know why am I signing on for 5 years? I mean, 5 extra years beyond the wire. I don't understand that. No one's explained it to me.
Got the option.
Well, we don't really have an option out part. According to council, it sounds like it automatically renews every year after the first year for 5 years straight. And it doesn't sound like we can just terminate at the end of any particular year. Was that correct, council?
Subject to appropriation. So I put in the chat Article 8, Section 3 of the Idaho Constitution, which prohibits a political subdivision from incurring indebtedness or liability in any manner or from any purpose exceeding in that year the income and revenue provided for it for such year without the assent of 2/3 of the qualified electors thereof voting in an election to be held for that purpose, nor unless before or at the time of incurring such indebtedness, provisions shall be made for the collection of an annual tax sufficient to pay the interest on such indebtedness as it falls due, and also to constitute a sinking fund for the payment of the principal thereof within 30 years from the time of contracting the same. Any indebtedness or liability incurred contrary to this provision shall be void. That's why I amended the end of the paragraph 19 that talks about termination for non-appropriation of funds, because there is a automatically renewing 5-year period after the first year. But what Fatbeam was trying to do is say, if you don't appropriate funds, you can't have any other internet service. And I don't think that's probably going to be a legally enforceable provision in a contract. It will probably be held to be void against public policy. There's no case law on it that I'm aware of. And so I wanted to massage it in a way that it would make it legal for the board to make a long-term commitment to Fatbeam, but also allow us the ability to appropriate the funds each year without having to have 2/3 of the electors vote on it. And so it's just kind of a way around, a 5-year contract. We can say we'll do a 5-year contract, but we can't appropriate funds for 5 years we can't spend non-appropriated funds, right? So if we don't appropriate the funds in the year we're binding ourselves, the contract's void. So it wouldn't matter if we signed it, we wouldn't be held to it. And so I wanted to make it legally enforceable and fair. And so I think that is the case now, removing that last sentence from paragraph 19. But that's a different issue than having a multi-year contract. So those are two separate issues. One is an appropriation of funds, which binds the taxpayer to paying for something, and the other one is a term over a period of which this is going to be rendered. So I think I'm at the point with that change that I can sign off on it. Whether it's a wise decision or not is up to the board. And what I'm hearing from Claire is that she's saying, Fatbeam is putting a substantial amount of cost up front in making it work immediately for the community library network. Like the cost of the first year exceed what they're going to make in profit, which is why they want to have a multi-year contract to make sure that, as year 2 or year 3, at some point they're going to hit the green. But if they just did a 1 year with these terms, they'd be in the red, which means they wouldn't. And so we don't want to, and that means the contract price would go up. So if we do want to do a 1 year, I don't know how much it would go up, but it would probably go up significantly based upon what I'm hearing from Claire.
Yes, it definitely would go up. So the longer the term you have, and I guess, I'm sorry I didn't give you this answer way back when you started asking your question. A longer term contract gives you lower pricing because the vendor can amortize their costs, their upfront costs over a longer period of time, and because it reduces the risks for them, and it reduces, having to go out and buy get the business again, gives them stability in their business model. So yes, a longer term contract does result in lower pricing.
And I fully expect and agree, it probably does. I'm just, for my own self, that would have helped me, and again, I'm after the fact, I'm not gonna fuss over the issue forever, but if the RFP said, for a 1-year contract, 2-year contract, 3-year contract, up to 5 years, here are the different charges, it would be, you know, how much it would cost per month if we knew the different durations and how they affected the pricing. But I'm okay with the explanation so far, trustee Plus.
So before I agree to sign the contract, I did have a question on Exhibit B, service level agreement, and maybe Mark can tell me, but we've got several specifications: latency, guarantee 50, less than 55 milliseconds, jitter, no more than 2 milliseconds, packet loss. Do you monitor this? Have they met this last year?
As much as I possibly can, measure that, and with my measuring of the data and everything, they have met their service level, that we have previously, which is pretty much, I think, which is the same as in there. And it has been an extremely solid connection, and they have been meeting service levels. There are occasionally things that happen that you can't control. A fiber line gets cut somewhere, we lose power somewhere, but they have always been responsive on that too, and the service level has been met in the past.
So is this same service level, these numbers?
I believe so, yes.
So they haven't offered to make it better? It's just, yeah, it seems pretty good.
Yes.
Okay.
And there are further questions regarding?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Did the community library network approve the responsive bid proposing the lowest procurement price?
My understanding was it wasn't just price, it was whatever the RFP, it probably has a gridded check off on certain functions here. I can't answer that. Do you
Is
think
it
it yeah.
between 100,000 but not exceeding $250,000?
It's about $50,000 a year.
Okay.
Trustee Plus?
So council, is the question, did we select the quote that was the lowest price? Or were you just asking, how did they calculate it? Because we weren't involved in that, the board, so I don't know that we necessarily approved, but I did get a chance to see it, and Fatbeam was not the lowest price, but there wasn't a lot different with the other quote. But they weren't, some of these other criteria like prior experience and
It was, yeah, they were $5 more per month. So if you were to amortize that over the period of the contract, I don't know that that would, remember how I was telling you about how you'd have those additional costs for,
I saw
for the-
20 or
that
$20.
overlapping period when you do the transition. There's definitely at least a 1-month overlap on that. And I don't know that $5 a month would offset that transition cost.
But I saw a $20 difference, and I agree, but they were also penalized because they were in the Northwest as opposed to local. But anyway, we weren't involved in that rating, council, so if that's what you're asking.
But there are further questions. Okay, and I know there's a motion on the floor. We probably have to include the date of this the proposed contract. Are we still running with approving a contract that's got a date of, or proposal of December 15th? Because I don't know how to make the motion. I don't know what we're voting on as far as what, because I think it's been modified once or twice by council.
You've got a new one.
So what
What is our absolute deadline to execute this contract? When does Fatbeam need to have our board signatures delivered to them?
July.
No, it's not. I mean, and this is part of the problem.
I know,
Number
but-
one,
I'm making a little joke.
oh, okay.
but I don't know the
Well,
answer. to the
That,
question.
pardon my loss of my sense of humor, because I've got all of my clients trying to turn in their contracts at the last minute, and I can't start my applications until I get contracts. So
No,
that's
didn't
why I jump on
understand-
that one. That's just a little hot button with me, so
Yeah,
I
in an
apologize
earlier
for that.
meeting, yeah, I didn't understand the difference between the contract, the renewal date stuff, which I think is July, I believe. But
Yeah.
also it has to be in conjunction with what goes on in the E-rate world. And I understand that better with an email we got already with some information, some guidance. But council was asking about a contract date. I can't answer that question right now.
I can answer it, but I need to ask you a question. Are you feeling like you're going to sign it, but you may be tweaking the contract? If that's the case, we got a little bit of time, maybe a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Because that's just an administrative issue. If
Yeah,
you are
I-
thinking about not signing the contract, it would be too late at this point for us to issue a new RFP and get E-rate funding for it. And so then you could, I don't know, I don't know how you could get service from any provider.
But I can't speak for the board. My inclination and guess is we want to sign it. But I'm getting this, feeling that council wants to tweak the contract. Is that what's on your mind, council? You had a question about?
Well, I'm receiving new information in this meeting today, and I don't necessarily know I want to bring it up right now, but I have two questions that are still unresolved in my mind based upon what I've heard today. But it's a tweak issue, not a new RFP issue, Claire, for me,
Okay,
just to be clear.
yeah, we got a couple of weeks. That's okay.
Yeah, good. So what I'm saying is, if those two issues are resolved, then I'm okay with what we have out to the board now.
Lost me. So are we approving this or not approving it? Are we conditionally approving it? Are we saying tentatively we want to approve it, but we're waiting for you to tweak some pieces? I'm a little bit oh, sorry, please,
Okay, so at the last meeting, legal talked about the changes he would want to make. And he made the changes, got them a couple hours ago. They're here, so this is an executable form of the contract, which you could sign. If legal's now saying that this one could have further tweaks, and if Claire is saying we have weeks, then we can bring the further tweaked contract to the regular meeting and sign it. But I would need the board to review it after legal confirms that this is the one. But without further discussion at the next meeting would be great.
yeah,
No.
as legal discussion as possible. So can I take a question? So are these technical tweaks not major changes? Because I know nothing new about it. I feel comfortable that eventually I'd say, Joe, I've heard enough stuff on this to understand it enough that I'd be comfortable at some point signing. Are there any other pending questions and issues aside from whatever tweaks are?
Until legal said what he said a few minutes ago, I assumed we could sign this one. If that's not the case, then it goes back to legal until he sends me a different one, and I'll bring it to you that way.
Okay. So
I want to bring up one more point. You were planning to open a new administrative building, and Martin and I talked about this morning. He thinks that there may be ways around that, but the delays that happen at this stage of the game will delay internet access being installed at that location because they can't start working on it till they have a contract.
if we have an impasse with regard to legal and we have to have some things adjusted, I can't see us proceeding recklessly here. So are we going
You can
to
conditionally approve it
You feel, okay?
or do it at the next meeting. I'm fine with either one of those.
We have another meeting next week, Trustee Plus.
I guess I'd like to delay until we get the actual changes till next week and a chance to review it. I would like the points that were awarded to be shown to the board, how they actually were. I saw a copy of it. that maybe between now and next meeting, the points and the way it was awarded could be given. Because I believe there's a mistake, two mistakes. One is, there was regional vendor points awarded to Zipley, or I mean to Fatbeam that really shouldn't have been awarded because it specifically said in the CLN district and anyway, and the Zipley is in our district, the Prairie and 95. And then, I really don't like this 40% for price, but I thought I saw $20 difference per month. $5 is what was referenced here, but I'd like to see the actual points.
There is a $20 difference on the internet line, but it's wiped out by the WAN connections. So it came to a total of 5,925 for Fatbeam and 5,920 for Zipley.
Well, could that be presented to us at the next meeting or before the next meeting?
Sure.
Yeah, as long as nothing forbids me from doing so, I will do so.
I frankly feel going with Zipley would not be a delay. They're basically a local company, and they're providing the fiber already, but I think it's overplayed what the risk is. But anyway.
I can tell you that I had another one switch from Fatbeam to the owners of those lines, and it took 9 months. There was a 9-month delay for Pierce County Library. For 4 of the lines, it was tens of thousands of dollars in costs. So I'd like you to be aware of that.
And Trustee Plotz's concerns about accuracy on the scoring there, if they're not enough to cause us to have a, I guess,
Just show them, that's all I'm asking.
okay, because I mean, I don't want to rescore if we already, we don't have to describe it here, but hopefully I don't want to take this in a long, please, Trustee Addison.
Would you prefer me to rescind my motion or?
Yeah, I think so.
Table it?
Yeah, I think it's not called table, it's put off until further date, there's no.
Yeah, that's
till next-
tabling. Rescinding means that we would need a
Yeah,
motion.
yeah.
So, okay, I rescind it.
Right, very good, the motion has been rescinded. Is there-
Next meeting.
Yeah, so I suppose want us back on the agenda for Thursday next week,
Just so I can clarify it,
please.
in order for the board to adequately review the document, you're going to need it by what date? Obviously not the day of the meeting.
No, okay.
Well, we don't want to take time of the meeting to read it for the first time. So
When
by
you
what
send out
date?
the agenda? You sent the agenda? Oh.
That's
yeah.
today.
You've got it here, yeah.
So in other words, legal says he needs to make tweaks to this document, so this actually affects him more than it affects me. He should probably know what date you need it by.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I'd be okay with Tuesday.
Okay, then.
I see him nodding.
Yes,
Yes.
that works?
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
and hopefully they don't call out what the changes were, so I don't have to read all 50, 60 pages over again.
It's just,
Oh, okay, good, okay, good. Okay, we good
As
there?
long as I can hop on a call with Claire and the director, I should be able to get it resolved pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
I can arrange that, yeah.
Okay, so we'll still be on the agenda, but we'll get a pre-read on it, and then we can hopefully sign off on it at the next meeting on Thursday, next week. All right, okay. Further discussion on this? Hearing none, we'll press on. That finishes agenda number 3. We're now on agenda item number 4, and we will have to have a motion, I guess, to go into executive session, and will require
Thanks, Claire.
thank you for, yes, I'm gonna take you out there, sorry. We'll need to have a roll call vote as well. Yes, Trustee Addison.
Move to go into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061B.
Okay, when we go on, okay, but it has been moved to go into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061B. All those in favor with roll call votes.
Bye.
Aye.
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 Many ayes have it. and we have one person up here, so. No, okay. Okay, no, we can go ahead and do our executive session. It's been approved. Yeah.